My husband left money to his mistress. I bought her company and demoted her. Hi everyone! Before we get into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel's reach has been dropping a bit, and one of the best ways you can support us is by subscribing. It's quick, free, and helps us keep bringing you new and interesting stories. Your support means the world to us, and together, we can grow this channel. Thank you so much. Now let's get to today's story. I'm writing from a temporary account for obvious reasons, and I've changed some details to protect my anonymity. The lawyer's office smelled of leather and old books, mahogany desk, expensive art on the walls, the kind of place that charged by the minute just to breathe its air. I sat in a chair that was probably worth more than most people's cars, my hands folded in my lap, waiting for Gerald Morrison to finish reading through my late husband's will. Richard had been dead for 3 weeks. Heart attack at 52, sudden and brutal. One moment he was on the phone closing a deal, the next he was on the floor of his office, gone before the ambulance arrived. They said he didn't suffer. I wasn't sure if that made it better or worse. Gerald cleared his throat. That particular sound lawyers make when they're about to deliver bad news disguised as legal language. Mrs. Ashford, there are several bequests to review. The house, as you know, is jointly owned, so that passes to you automatically. The investment portfolio, the same. However, that word, however, the word that changes everything. However, there's a separate account. A trust, actually, established 3 years ago. Your husband left instructions that upon his death, the sum of $250,000 should be transferred to a Miss Victoria Chen. The name meant nothing to me. The amount meant everything, $250,000, to a stranger. I'm sorry, who? My voice sounded strange, distant, like it was coming from someone else. Gerald looked uncomfortable. He'd been Richard's lawyer for 15 years, had drawn up our wills, handled our business contracts. He knew this was more than a simple bequest to a favorite charity or distant relative. Miss Victoria Chen, age 29. She works at Brightwell Solutions, a marketing firm downtown. That's all the information I have, I'm afraid. 29. I was 48. The math was simple, ugly. Did my husband leave any explanation? Any letter? No, Mrs. Ashford. Just the instruction for the transfer. I sat there, frozen. Around me, the office continued to exist. The ticking clock, the hum of the air conditioning, the distant sound of traffic through the heavy windows. But inside, something was collapsing, a structure I'd thought was solid crumbling into dust. Is there anything else? I asked. Gerald hesitated. There's a provision that if you contest this bequest, the amount increases to $500,000. Richard was very specific about wanting this to go through without interference. Of course he was. My husband, always thorough, always prepared, always one step ahead. I stood up. My legs were steady, which surprised me. Thank you, Gerald. Please proceed with the transfer as specified. You're not going to... No, I'm not going to contest it. I picked up my purse, a Hermes bag Richard had given me for our 20th anniversary. How fitting. If my husband wanted to give $250,000 to Miss Victoria Chen, then that's what will happen. I walked out of that office with my head high and my spine straight. I made it to my car, a Mercedes Richard had bought me last Christmas. I made it into the driver's seat and closed the door. Then I fell apart. Part 1. The unraveling. I didn't go home immediately. I couldn't face the empty house, the room still full of Richard's things, his coffee cup still in the sink from the morning he died. Instead, I drove to the lake, to the spot where Richard had proposed 23 years ago. It had been sunset then, the water gold and pink, and he'd gotten down on one knee right there on the dock and asked me to be his wife. He'd had a speech prepared, Richard always prepared, about how he'd never met anyone like me, how I challenged him and inspired him and made him want to be better. I'd believed every word. We built a life together. Not just a marriage, but an empire. Richard had started with one small real estate office, and together we'd grown it into Ashford and Associates, one of the most successful firms in the state. I wasn't just his wife, I was his partner. I handled the marketing, the client relations, the image. He handled the deals, the negotiations, the numbers. We were a team. Or so I thought. Sitting there by the lake, watching the same water that had witnessed his proposal, I replayed our marriage like a detective looking for clues. When had it started? How had I missed it? 3 years ago, Gerald had said. The trust was established 3 years ago. What had happened then? I pulled out my phone and opened my calendar, scrolling back. 3 years ago was 2021. We'd expanded the business, opened 2 new offices. Richard had traveled more, spent more late nights at work. But that was normal. We were growing. We were building something. Or was he building something else? I thought about our last conversation, the morning he died. We'd had breakfast together, poached eggs, whole wheat toast, black coffee for him, green tea for me. The same breakfast we'd had for 20 years. He'd kissed me goodbye, told me he loved me, reminded me we had dinner plans that weekend with the Harringtons. He'd seemed normal, happy even. Had he known? Had he felt the heart attack coming? Did he die with secrets? Or did he die thinking his secret was safe? The sun was setting now, just like it had been the day he proposed. But this time, the gold and pink looked cold to me. Empty. A beautiful lie. Part 2. The investigation I didn't tell anyone. Not my sister, not my friends. Not even Patricia, my assistant who'd been with me for a decade. I smiled at the funeral, accepted condolences, played the grieving widow with practiced grace. And in private, I investigated. Victoria Chen, 29 years old. Bachelor's degree in marketing from State University, worked at Brightwell Solutions for 4 years. Currently, a senior account manager. LinkedIn profile showed a pretty woman with dark hair and ambitious eyes. Her posts were professional, polished. She wrote about brand strategy and market positioning and client relationships. Brightwell Solutions. The name was familiar. I dug through Richard's files, his emails, his calendar. And there it was. Richard had been a silent partner in Brightwell. He'd invested $200,000 5 years ago to help the company get off the ground. In return, he held 20% of the shares. 5 years ago, before the trust, before Victoria was promised money in his will. How did they meet? I scrolled through Richard's calendar entries. Brightwell Solutions appeared regularly. Quarterly meetings, annual reviews, occasional lunches marked simply Brightwell check-in. Had she been at those meetings? Had they started as professional encounters that turned into something else? Or had it been calculated from the beginning? I found a photo from Brightwell's company Christmas party 4 years ago. Richard was in the background, glass of champagne in hand, smiling at something off camera. And there, in the foreground, was Victoria Chen. Wearing a red dress, holding her own champagne, her eyes bright with youth and possibility. She would have been 25 then. I would have been 44. Richard would have been 48. How cliched. How utterly, desperately cliched. But knowing the cliché didn't make it hurt less. I went through our credit card statements, looking for evidence. And I found it, not obvious, but there. Dinners at restaurants we'd never been to together. Hotel rooms charged to his business account when he was supposedly traveling alone. Jewelry purchases from stores I'd never received gifts from. For 3 years, my husband had been living a double life, and I'd been too busy, too trusting, too stupid to see it. The night I discovered the hotel charges, I opened a bottle of wine, a Bordeaux from our cellar, one Richard had been saving for a special occasion. I drank the whole thing sitting in his study, surrounded by his books and his awards, and his photographs of us smiling at various charity galas and business dinners. In every photo, I looked happy, confident, secure in my place beside him. What a fool I'd been. Part 3. The decision, the money transferred to Victoria Chen on schedule. $250,000, deposited into her account without fanfare or ceremony. Gerald called to confirm the transaction was complete. "What will you do now?" he asked carefully. "I don't know," I lied. Because I did know. The idea had been forming slowly, crystallizing over weeks of investigation and sleepless nights. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to make a scene. I was going to do something far more effective. I called Marcus Webb, an old friend who specialized in corporate acquisitions. We met at an expensive restaurant, the same restaurant, I noted with bitter irony, where Richard had taken Victoria twice, according to the credit card statements. "Diana, it's good to see you," Marcus said, embracing me carefully. "I'm so sorry about Richard." "Thank you. I want to talk business." His eyebrows rose. "So soon?" "Especially now." I opened my briefcase, pulled out a folder. "Brightwell Solutions. I want to buy it." Marcus took the folder, flipped through the information I'd compiled. "Richard had 20%. That's not controlling interest." "I know. I need you to approach the other shareholders. Quietly. Find out who's willing to sell." "May I ask why?" "Personal interest." He studied me for a long moment. Marcus was smart. He could probably guess. But he was also discreet. "This won't be cheap, and it might take time." "I have money, and I have time." I leaned forward. "I want this, Marcus. Whatever it costs." He nodded slowly. "I'll make some calls." Over the next 6 weeks, Marcus worked his magic. It turned out the founder of Brightwell, a man named James Hartley, was ready to retire. He owned 40% and was looking for an exit strategy. The remaining 40% was split among 3 minor investors, one of whom was in financial trouble and eager to liquidate assets. It took 2 months and cost me nearly $2 million money from my personal inheritance, not the business Richard and I had built together. I wanted this to be mine alone. On a Tuesday in October, the papers were signed. I owned 65% of Brightwell Solutions. I was the majority shareholder, the controlling interest, the boss. I owned the company where my husband's mistress worked. Part 4. The reveal: I didn't announce my acquisition immediately. I spent a week reviewing Brightwell's operations, studying its structure, understanding the business. It was actually quite good, profitable, growing, well-managed. James Hartley had built something solid. Victoria Chen's personnel file made for interesting reading. She was talented, I had to admit. Her client retention rate was excellent. Her campaigns innovative. She'd been promoted twice in 4 years and was clearly on track for more responsibility. She'd also received a significant raise 18 months ago, approved by James Hartley, but funded by a consultant fee from Richard. My husband had been supporting her career and paying for her advancement. The humiliation cut deeper than I'd expected. I scheduled my first official visit to Brightwell for a Monday morning. I dressed carefully, a tailored navy suit from Armani, pearl earrings, my hair in a sleek chignon. I wanted to look powerful, untouchable, completely in control. The receptionist looked confused when I walked in. "I'm sorry, do you have an appointment?" "I'm Diana Ashford, the new majority owner." "Is James Hartley in?" Her eyes widened. "Oh, yes, of course. Just a moment." She scurried away. I waited in the lobby, noticing everything. The modern furniture, the company awards on the wall, the photographs of team events and company milestones. In one photo, I spotted Victoria, laughing with colleagues, her hand touching the arm of a man I now recognized as James. She looked happy, successful, untouched by guilt or consequence. Not for long. James appeared, flustered but gracious. "Mrs. Ashford, we weren't expecting you today. Welcome, welcome. Let me show you around. I'd like to meet the team first. Can you assemble everyone in the conference room in 10 minutes? "Of course. All of them?" "All of them." 20 minutes later, these things always take longer than promised. I stood at the head of a conference table, surrounded by 35 confused employees. They'd been pulled from their desks without explanation, and they murmured among themselves, wondering what was happening. And there, halfway down the table, sat Victoria Chen. She was prettier in person than in photos. Delicate features, intelligent eyes, expensive clothes. She wore a bracelet I recognized, thin gold, with a distinctive clasp. Richard had charged it to his card 2 years ago. I'd assumed it was for me, and had been confused when it never appeared. Mystery solved. I let the silence stretch, watching them. Victoria's eyes met mine, and I saw the moment of recognition she knew who I was. The wife. The widow. Her face paled, but she didn't look away. Good. Let her be brave. Good morning, I said, my voice clear and steady. For those who don't know me, I'm Diana Ashford. As of last Friday, I own 65% of this company. James will remain as president, but all major decisions will now go through me. Shocked silence, then a ripple of whispers. I'm impressed by what I've seen so far. Brightwell has a strong foundation and significant potential. I intend to build on that foundation, which means changes are coming, some structural, some personnel. I let my gaze drift across the room, landing briefly on Victoria. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap, knuckles white. I'll be spending considerable time here over the next few months, getting to know the operation and the people. I encourage you to approach me with concerns or ideas. My door will always be open. I smiled, a smile that didn't reach my eyes. I believe in transparency and direct communication. If you have questions about why I acquired this company, or what my plans are, please ask. I have nothing to hide. The irony of that statement, given that I was standing in front of my dead husband's mistress, was not lost on me. That's all for now. Thank you for your time. They filed out slowly, still confused, still processing. Victoria was one of the last to leave. As she passed my chair, I said quietly, "Miss Chen, could you stay for a moment?" She froze, turned. James was still in the room, gathering papers, and he glanced between us curiously. "James, thank you. I'll speak with you this afternoon," I said. He left, closing the door behind him. Victoria and I looked at each other across the conference table. Two women connected by one dead man and a web of secrets and lies. "Mrs. Ashford," she began, her voice surprisingly steady. How long?" I interrupted. She blinked. "I'm sorry? How long were you sleeping with my husband?" The bluntness shocked her. Good. I didn't want polite euphemisms. I wanted truth. 3 years, she said finally. Almost 3 years. Did you love him? Yes. No hesitation, as if that made it acceptable. Did he love you? He said he did. He told me the same thing, the morning he died, actually, right before he left for work. I stood up, walked to the window. The view overlooked the city glass towers and busy streets, everyone rushing to build their futures, chase their dreams, live their lives. He left you money, $250,000. I didn't ask for it. But you accepted it. Silence. I turned to face her. Did you know he was married when it started? Yes. At least she was honest. Or maybe she just knew that lying now would be pointless. Did you feel guilty? Sometimes. She lifted her chin. But I loved him, Mrs. Ashford. It wasn't just an affair. We had plans. He was going to leave me. I laughed, sharp and bitter. Is that what he told you? That he was going to leave his wife of 23 years? The woman who built his business with him, who stood beside him through every success and failure? He was going to leave all that for a 29-year-old he'd been fucking for 3 years? She flinched at the word, but held her ground. People do leave marriages. Not Richard. Richard didn't leave things. He accumulated them. He liked having options. I moved closer. You were an option, Victoria, a pleasant diversion, a way to feel young again. But you were never the plan. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Because if you were the plan, he would have changed his will. He would have left you more than money. He would have left you something real. But all he left you was cash. I paused. He left me everything else. The house, the business, the life we built, the reputation, the legacy. You got paid, like a service provider. Do you understand the difference? Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't cry. Why are you doing this? Why did you buy this company? Because I can. I returned to my seat at the head of the table. You took something from me. Now I'm taking something from you. My job? You're going to fire me? No, I'm going to do something worse. I opened my briefcase, pulled out a document. I'm restructuring the company. Senior positions are being reevaluated based on merit and loyalty. You're being reassigned. I slid the paper across the table. She picked it up, read it, her face going from pale to white. Junior account coordinator? That's entry level. That's what I was 4 years ago. Yes. Consider it a fresh start. You'll report to Sarah Mitchum, who's being promoted to your old position. Your salary will be adjusted accordingly. Benefits remain the same. You can't do this. This is retaliation. I'll sue. For what? I'm the owner. I can structure my company however I see fit. There's no law against reassigning employees. And unless you want your relationship with Richard to become public knowledge, which would be embarrassing for both of us, I suggest you accept the new position gracefully. She stared at me, trapped. I did love him. I know. That's what makes this sad instead of just pathetic. I stood up, gathering my things. You start your new position Monday. HR will have the paperwork ready. If you choose not to accept it, I'll understand, and we'll process your resignation. And if I stay? Then every day you'll come to this office, you'll do entry-level work for entry-level pay, and you'll remember that the money my husband left, you won't last forever. But the consequences of your choices will. I walked to the door, then paused. One more thing. That bracelet you're wearing, it belonged to me. My husband bought it with money from our joint account. I'd like it back. She looked down at her wrist, at the thin gold chain I'd watched Richard charge to his Amex. Slowly, her hands shaking, she unclasped it and held it out. I took it, feeling the weight of it, cool metal that represented so many lies. Thank you. Welcome to Brightwell Solutions, Miss Chen. I'm sure we'll work together very well. I left her sitting alone in the conference room, and as I walked out, I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not victory, not even anger. Just a cold, clean emptiness where emotions used to be. Part 5. The aftermath. Victoria stayed. I didn't think she would, but she did. Perhaps she needed the job. Perhaps she was proud. Perhaps she thought she could outlast me. She showed up Monday morning, walked past her old office now Sarah Mitchum's, and took her seat in a cubicle with the junior coordinators, most of whom were fresh college graduates. She did her work, kept her head down, and didn't complain. I made sure I was visible. I visited the office twice a week, walked the floor, attended meetings. I was never cruel, never obvious. I didn't need to be. My presence was enough. Everyone knew, of course. Offices are gossip mills, and the timing of my acquisition and Victoria's demotion was too coincidental to ignore. They whispered, speculated, watched us both carefully. Some pitied Victoria. Others thought she got what she deserved. Most just stayed out of it. Sarah Mitchum turned out to be excellent in her new role, better than Victoria had been, actually. She landed 3 major clients in her first 2 months and brought fresh energy to the department. I promoted 2 other employees who'd been languishing under the old structure, and productivity increased across the board. Brightwell was thriving, and Victoria was filing paperwork. 3 months after the restructuring, I was working late in the office James's old office, now mine, when there was a knock on the door. Come in. Victoria entered, looking tired. She'd lost weight, I noticed. The expensive clothes were gone, replaced with cheaper versions. The bracelet, obviously, was gone too. Mrs. Ashford, may I speak with you? Of course. Sit down. She sat on the edge of the chair, nervous. I wanted to tell you that I'm resigning. My last day will be 2 weeks from Friday. May I ask why? I got a job offer, another firm, similar position to what I had before. Better pay. Congratulations. That's wonderful news. She looked surprised by my genuine tone. I also wanted to apologize for everything. What I did was wrong. I knew it was wrong while I was doing it, but I convinced myself it didn't matter. That love justified it, but it didn't. No, it didn't. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. What I destroyed, what I took from you, I see it clearly. I leaned back in my chair. What did you take from me, Victoria? Your marriage, your trust, your— No, I interrupted her gently. Richard took those things, not you. He made vows to me. He chose to break them. You didn't destroy my marriage. He did. Tears spilled down her cheeks now, silent and genuine. Then why did you do this? Why humiliate me? Because you needed to learn something. I stood, walked around the desk. My husband left you money. A lot of money. He thought that's what you deserved, what you were worth. A transaction, payment for services rendered. But I gave you something more valuable. What? Consequences, understanding, the knowledge that actions matter, that choices have weight. You're going to your new job having learned that power dynamics shift, that youth fades, that being someone's secret comes with a cost. I paused. In a strange way, I gave you more than he did. I gave you wisdom. She wiped her eyes. That's a cruel way to teach a lesson. Yes, but cruelty isn't always wrong. Sometimes it's clarity. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Victoria stood. For what it's worth, Mrs. Ashford, I'm sorry. Not just because of what happened to me here, but because you didn't deserve what he did to you. You were good to him. I could see that in everything. And he betrayed that. Yes, he did. Do you hate him now? I thought about that question. Did I hate Richard? Did I hate the man who'd shared my bed for 23 years, who'd built a business with me, who'd promised me forever, and then hedged his bets with a younger woman? No, I said finally. I'm disappointed in him. I'm angry at him. But hate requires too much energy, and he's not worth that anymore. I looked at Victoria. And I don't hate you either. You were foolish and selfish, but you were also human. We all are. She nodded, understanding this was as close to absolution as either of us would get. I hope you find happiness, Mrs. Ashford. Real happiness, not just survival. Thank you, Victoria. I wish you the same. She left, and 2 weeks later, she was gone from Brightwell. I heard she did well at her new job, eventually moved to another city, started fresh. I was glad. Revenge had never been the point. The point was making sure she understood that actions have consequences, that what seems glamorous and exciting in secret looks very different in daylight. The point was power not over her, but over myself, over my narrative, over what came next. Part 6. The Liberation 6. Months after Victoria left, I sold Brightwell Solutions. I'd restructured it, improved it, made it more valuable, and then I let it go. I made a profit, not a huge one, but enough. More importantly, I proved I could. I also sold Ashford and Associates. 23 years of work, gone in a signature. But it didn't feel like loss. It felt like shedding weight, like walking away from something that had become too heavy to carry. I bought a smaller house overlooking the ocean, 3 hours from the city. I filled it with new furniture, new art, new memories. Nothing from the old life except a few photographs ones of me and Richard before Victoria, before the trust, before the lies. I kept those not because I'd forgiven him, but because that version of us was real, even if it didn't last. My sister asked me once, was it worth it? Buying that company, going through all that? Yes, I said. Not because it hurt Victoria, but because it gave me back myself. I don't understand. When Richard died and I found out about her, about the money, I felt powerless, betrayed, like my whole life had been a lie. Buying Brightwell, confronting Victoria, restructuring everything that gave me power back. It showed me I could act, could choose, could shape outcomes instead of just enduring them. She nodded slowly. So it was about control. No, it was about agency. There's a difference. I started writing after I moved to the Ocean House. Not a memoir, nothing so self-important. Just thoughts, observations, lessons learned the hard way. One night, sitting on my deck watching the sunset over the water, I wrote this. My husband left money to his mistress, $250,000, carefully transferred after his death. He thought he was being generous, providing for her future, but all he really did was reduce a relationship to a transaction. Here's your payment for 3 years of hotel rooms and lies. Here's the price of your complicity. I bought her company and demoted her, which sounds like revenge. And maybe it was, at first. But it became something else. It became a lesson about worth versus price, about consequence versus comfort, about power not as domination, but as self-determination. She got money. But I got something better. I got to decide what happened next. I got to write the ending of the story, not just suffer through someone else's version of it. Richard left her money, but I left her conscience. And maybe that's the truest form of justice, not punishment, but understanding. Not revenge, but clarity. She'll remember me every time she cashes one of those checks, spending Richard's money. She'll remember that it came at a cost, that someone paid for those funds in humiliation and pain. She'll remember that she was part of that. And I'll remember that I didn't break, that I didn't retreat into victimhood or bitterness, that I acted, chose, moved forward with intention and purpose. In the end, we both got what we deserved. She got money and guilt. I got anger and freedom. I think I got the better deal. Epilogue. 3 years later, I saw Victoria one more time, completely by accident. I was in the city for a business lunch. I'd started consulting, helping women rebuild after divorce or widowhood, turning my experience into expertise. I was good at it, and it gave me purpose. She was coming out of a coffee shop as I was going in. We nearly collided, then both stepped back, recognizing each other. Mrs. Ashford. She looked different, older, more settled, wedding ring on her finger. Victoria, it's good to see you. You too. An awkward pause. I'm married now, to someone honest. I smiled. I'm glad. Are you happy? I thought about my ocean house, my consulting work, my new routines and rhythms, the way I slept through the night now without betrayal haunting my dreams, the way I could think about Richard without rage, just a distant sadness for what could have been. Yes, I said. I am. Are you? Getting there. She hesitated. I never thanked you. For what? For not destroying me, for teaching me instead. I hated you for a long time, but I understand now what you were doing. You could have ruined my career, my reputation, everything, but you just made me uncomfortable enough to grow. You're welcome. I meant it. We stood there for another moment, two women who'd loved the same flawed man, who'd hurt each other and been hurt, who'd survived. Take care, Victoria. You too, Mrs. Ashford. I watched her walk away, then went into the coffee shop and ordered a latte. I sat by the window, watching the city rush past, and felt nothing but peace. Richard had tried to buy absolution with money, to ease his guilt by providing for his mistress even after death. But guilt can't be purchased, and forgiveness can't be inherited. Both must be earned. I'd earned my peace. Slowly, painfully, through action and choice, and the refusal to be only a victim. And Victoria, I hoped, had earned hers too. In the end, that was enough. The past was the past. The money was spent or saved or forgotten. The company had new owners, new leadership, new direction. But the lessons remained, for both of us, and that, more than revenge or justice or any other satisfaction, was what mattered most.